And just welcome everyone to our last meeting of the Ontario Woodcarvers virtual show, our very first one. Lots of good things have come out of this last couple of weeks with the meetings we've had, ideas that people have suggested, and responses have been very, very positive. Made a few boo-boos here and there, but we'll get through them.
So I'm just going to share your screen, guys. Hopefully everybody can see this.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of the carvings. We're going to begin by taking a look at just a bunch of general carvings, and towards the end of our presentation, we are going to be announcing the winners for each of the 4 categories. The judges' criteria, what we are looking for, we're looking at design, technique, craftsmanship, paint, the finish, overall appeal. But of course, as in any kind of judging situation, even with all the criteria in place, there's still individual responses of the judges that take place. So what we're going to do is we have just gone through, that would be Mark, Murray, and myself. We've gone and taken a look at the different carvings. And so we're going to display the carving for you. And then we're just going to share, talking briefly, a couple of things about the 2 carvings. So we won't announce each other who's going to be doing what. You'll just hear us as we speak. But the first one up will be Mark.
Yeah, and maybe just something in general. If everybody can go on mute, so there's not a lot of background noise coming in, and then we'll talk about what we found in this. If you know what I would say that you and Murray and I talked about is if anybody wants some specific discussion around their carving, we'd be glad to take that on at another time, you know, whether it's a phone call or a smaller Zoom call. But right now, we're just going to go through and sort of give some of our thoughts on what we saw as judges, right?
Okay.
Okay.
In the round.
Okay, in the round, the first one up is this archer fish, and it's kind of nice that we brought this one up first, because right away you get a sense of the challenge we had in judging all these carvings. I think there was something like 50 carvings entered, all extremely high quality, interesting carvings, really good designs, and a little bit of a difficulty and complexity in judging them from photographs. So although a number of people gave us upwards of 3 photographs of the carvings, it was difficult judging it. You can't get up close to it. You can't turn it on your own and really understand what you're looking at. So this is a good example of the complexity of really tremendous carvings we received. So this really captures the motion in the archerfish. The archerfish, of course, spits and captures insects and whatnot just by really good aim. And I think this carving really demonstrates the importance of the base and the setting. So you can see that it shows all kinds of motion and action in the way that the carver put this together, right down to the color of the base, like that's a natural wood, and then the rocks and the branches on top of it. The proportions and the color are really great on this particular fish. You take a look at the archerfish pictures, and some of them are a little bit brighter than this, but I think that goes kind of from fish to fish, and of course light to whatever light is hitting the fish as well. Really good detail in what we could see around the fills and the fins and the gill lines. So their detail really looked good in this carving. Yeah, I think one of the things that we looked at this and really understood sort of the challenge the carver had with the thickness of the surface, because you want the thickness of the surface to be small enough that it doesn't detract from the carving, but it needs to be strong enough because it's really holding the carving together. It's what's holding the fish in place, basically, as it appears anyway. The other challenge that the carver, I think, did a good job on was the glossiness of it. So some fish, you know, you can do in sort of a matte finish and they look really great. Other fish in their habitat, you do in a gloss finish. This is a little on the glossy side, but I think it really, I really think it suits the setting and the fish really well. Really nice carving.
Here's our second carving that we'd like to show you. This is the buffle head. And one of the things that struck out for us right away would be the coloring. You can see that it's towards the head, the different colors. One of the ideas that might be something for a future one would be a little bit more of the blending of the colors. you can see lines where one color meets the other color as opposed to just sort of a blending between the two. Overall, we see a good shape in this carving from the front to the back. It might have also been a little bit to have the head tilted a little bit, would have given it a little bit more of a motion, a little bit more of a realism. And if you take a look at the feathering, and that's, as Mark was saying, trying to get in and take a look at the featherings from pictures, we enlarged these as much as we could. And you can see that there's lines that are put in, but there's not, it just doesn't seem to be distinct feathering for each individual feathers. But overall, it was actually a nice picture. It was nice to have it mounted on the wood. That really made it come alive. But this is the buffle head.
This particular carving is striking in that it's not been painted, it's not been decorated with something on top of it, but it shows the beauty of the wood below. And yet the contrast between this turtle and the coral down below and the starfish and the brown coral, I think at the end of the carving, is really striking. It makes the turtle stand out even better. And thinking of coral, when you go down under the water, if you've ever had the chance to snorkel or go down as a diver, you can see this pretty real looking coral. But the other part of it that I notice is that the simplicity of the action is effective. It's got the good grain and well executed shaping, and the detail, yet simple, is very powerful. In every kind of carving I look at, I see a story in it. What's the story of this one? The story is all about the diver that's looking at it, and I'm with him or with her on that. I like this one.
This next carving here does, as Murray was saying, telling a story. This one is actually entitled Dad's Boy. And you can really see the way that the whole mounting on the bark and the little head coming out and the dad being there beside it. It's a really fun carving, put a smile on our face when we took a look at it. The mounting was really good. This picture doesn't completely show, but you do get the idea of it around the back, the way that it mounted with the other piece of wood there. A little bit more definition around the parent's neck would help. It does seem to be sort of tucking its head down. It could be that it's trying to feed the young one from the inside. You can also see on the parent particular, and a little bit on the young one, you can see the feathering starting. And that really does add to the realism. You could see this really actually happening out in the wild.
This kind of carving to look at with a photograph is a big comparison or contrast to this carving being in the show on a table beside other carvings. And there's a beauty to this with the simplicity of the flower, the stem, and the way it's mounted. And yet the bird comes along and just begins to touch it, so the flower is bending down. It just may be my eyesight, but I can see the bird's wings moving. And it's a powerful thing when you look at this little American goldfinch, that it's saying something. There's a story to it. But I go back to mention the fact that in a carving show, if this is sitting on the table and there's other carvings around it, this is one that you walk up to and you say, wow, a big way. It draws you and keeps you there for a moment to think about what the bird's doing. And this carving is amazing, really.
I think it was Mark said he normally has a nap at this time. Not that this is Mark by any stretch, but this is another one of a fun piece that we enjoyed seeing.
I've actually put on about that much weight during COVID here, Kevin.
Oh, okay.
And my wife is a bear collector, so this is one that stood out big time. I want one of those, she said.
We love the story of this one. It's actually kind of neat too, with it sitting out on the snow, just as a photograph. We like the sleeping. We like the fact of the the fur is starting to happen, starting to flow over, but if you look carefully, you can see that some of the lines from the fur are kind of going in an opposite direction than we would normally think that they would. But the fur is starting to flow around. Another thing that we really liked, and you can just see it down there, is the cute smile on this bear. He's having a really good dream. Really good dream. Either that or he's trying to scratch his chin on the ground.
Yeah, these bluebirds are just beautiful. And, you know, this is another one, as Murray said, it's a shame that we can't see in real life. But just the overall flow of the design is just gorgeous. You know, it has a natural base there. You can see it's some kind of from a hardwood tree, some burrow from a hardwood tree, and then the stem up to the milkweed buds and or pods, and then the two bluebirds. Just beautiful. You know, this, if you could zoom in on this a bit, just the softness of those milkweed pods with the softness in the coloring and the texturing of these birds. Really, it's really just really pretty. Detailing was really good. The coloring, you know, we thought was very realistic. The real takeaway from this particular picture for me was that it's so well staged for a virtual show. You know, just look at the tabletop in the background. Somebody really gave a thought to this photograph, and it's probably something we all have to start thinking about a little bit more. How do we set up our carvings so that we can have these kinds of virtual shows? You know, as beautiful as it is, maybe a takeaway thought for the carver is, you know, as you look at that, do the size of the milkweed pods take away a little bit from attracting your eye to the birds? Maybe not, but it might be a thought to consider.
That might be something, Mark, for a future seminar, would be photographing.
I think that's a great idea.
carvings.
That's a
Yeah.
great idea, Kevin.
I'm trying to follow the pictures as well as admit folks into this session. But you know, as we look at this one together, the grain of that fish is just really beautiful. It's the way that it does it, plus the wing tips. I don't know if that's what you call them or not, but he's flying. His motion over top of the rock below or over top the bed of the ocean is gliding. And when you watch the videos, National Geographic kind of thing, that's what that thing does. It just flies through the water. I thought that the stylized and simple is such a great thing with a contrast with the reality of what it is. And yet, when you look at the creature in real life, in the photographs, you know, in the videos that we see, this thing is really just simply going to glide over to me and check me out. The story again is the diver and what he sees. Great one.
Now we're going to move on to some of the relief carvings. And the first relief carving that we're going to take a look at is this one called Elephant Family. Really, what we noticed right away is you get the real sense that this family is coming out. It's stepping out towards us. And of course, that's really made well around the ears because of the undercutting. You see the little bit of shadow and behind it makes it really stand out nicely. If you take a look at the young elephant, take a look at the trunk, just the curvature that has been carved in there. You can see a 3D effect. And of course, with relief carvings, it's always that view straight on as opposed to the sides. They did a great job. They balanced out the whole picture really well too by having the small bird in the bottom right-hand corner and then the clouds up above. Gives a simple background, but it actually forms a frame around them. One area that could be taken a look at would be the parent, that front leg, and the knee just seemed to be a little bit too low. It would have been better to be up higher. We think it's taking a step so that the actual pad of the foot could have been tucked back a little bit more, but a very impressive job, well executed, and finished off really well as well.
These are carving of iris flowers, just another really pleasing design. As you look at the way this was done within the oval, some of the elements of the flowers and the petals are within the boundary and some of them are outside of the boundary. So really nice. Nice combination too. You know, you see the flowers, you see the petals, you see a new pod, you see the leaves in a really striking background. So all in all, like the design really captures your eyes. It's really interesting, this carving to us, because it incorporated just about every type of carving. There's sort of a relief aspect to it. For sure, there's a relief aspect to it. But there's kind of an in the round aspect to some of the more mature flowers there. And the chip carving in the back, you don't normally see chip carving along with in the round or relief carving. And it has a real striking effect, we felt. Another nice thing that we noticed about this is that it's, you know, absolutely the full palette of colors were used. And I'm not sure it's called vermiculation, but you can see the colors, one bleeding into another. Just a beautiful job.
Now, when you look at this carving, and just for a moment, do you know what it's about? When we received the carving, it has a title. And the difficulty that I see is that trying to get the story out, you need words to tell it. And sometimes just as a carving standing alone, it's telling some sort of a story, but which story is it?
It's Scrooge.
Scrooge? Well, it's actually the Jack the Ripper. You
Ah,
know something of that story.
Yeah.
Whoa, there's a lot going to happen in that picture. Now, as an artist, one of the things I teach my students at one stage is something called one-point perspective. And what that means, if you've not been familiar with that term, is if you see the little character with the brown coat on it, we assume that's Jack now, we know the name. Up above him, there's kind of a light spot on the carving. I can't see it, but it's close enough. I have a program, I don't know if my mouse had showed or not, but this area right here is where everything that is a line in perspective will vanish to that point. Can you see the mouse moving there at all, Kevin?
No, can't.
Okay, I can't do that then. I haven't got a pointer.
What if I do mine? Where are you thinking?
Right here. Yeah, right there.
There?
Just up above there. You see, it almost looks like another either light post or something at the end. And so the lines from the left-hand side have to end there. The lines on the street, for instance, sidewalk or the street he's walking on, has to end there. And if you go to the top right-hand side of the buildings, any line from a rooftop will end there. And so the perspective in all the windows, lines that top and bottom of the windows will end there, unless they're on a different plane and they have a different one point. But as I say that, as an artist, I know something as a wood carver, that's really hard to do. And you've got so many things that you have to do as a carver to keep things going, so you're not chipping something out. You're trying to get the depth that you need to have a relief. And all of these things are playing together at the same time. Now, I'm assuming here something that maybe the carver has to tell me more about it, but I'm assuming that this may be a drawing, definitely not a photograph from Jack the Ripper's time, but a drawing that someone has done, and the carver's been faithful to the drawing. Taking a bit of artistic license as an artist, I would zoom in and make Jack the Ripper closer to me. So I'm maybe going from the middle section of his body, and I can see more of what his coat and everything is. And part of that Jack the Ripper story is held with almost a hidden person in the carving. Kevin, if you could point over to the lady of the night on the left-hand side beside the building. There's not enough to show what she is, but we know the story once you tell Jack the Ripper. She's waving at him. And so the whole thing of being closer. Now, when doing the artwork and talking about painters and painting a scene, you go down to the park and you get to the park and you want to paint the scene. You've got the lake out front of you, and you've got 5 birch trees planted by the city in front, right beside the edge of the lake. And when you want to paint the lake, the birch trees are there. People that are hanging on to that picture and that scene, they can't remove the birch trees. They have to draw them in. But as an artist, I can take the birch trees away and paint the lake and maybe put one birch tree at the left, not 5 equally spaced across the scene. So I do have that power, even though somebody's given me this idea of Jack the Ripper from the story. I can make some changes, and that helps the image that I'm carving. It's not an exaggeration, but it helps me to define it better so the picture, the story can be told better. But I like what's happened with the burning. I like the framing of it, the way it's been done, the contrast, even staining the body, or perhaps it's burning. I can't see from the close-ups or from the picture, but Jack the Ripper, the man stands out compared to the rest. And there's a power to the story. Branches need to be a little bit thinner, but I can say that, but I've not carved this piece of wood. I've got some carvings that I've done. They've got branches exactly like this. Mine look more like pool noodles than they do like branches. So I see the struggle that the carvers put into it, but you did a good job here.
Here's the Nativity cross. You've heard us talk a lot about a story. Here's the story of Nativity. One of the things that did jump out right away was the fact of you do have the baby Jesus right in the middle of the cross, which definitely tells a story about that. We like the fact that there's a lot of color in here. It's not deep in terms of all the carving levels. You can see that the buildings in the middle are probably about as deep as all the people are all the way around it. The colorings make a difference. It would be nice to see a little bit more blending of some of the colors. It would be nice to see a little more definition around the heads, for example, to make them pop out. But this is a great carving that tells the story right away. The colors are vibrant. It's something that you could see being hanging up on a wall during the Christmas season.
I'm getting into a bad habit of talking while I'm muted here, Kevin. Sorry. Here's another nice relief carving that we thought stood out for a variety of reasons. So it's a howling wolf, obviously. Very interesting sort of layering effect. Most relief carvings, of course, are in different layers or depths like this. But this one is kind of, you might say it's kind of a simple boxy design, but it just has a really good effect with this particular subject, we felt. Each piece is kind of so boxy, it stands distinctly out from the next piece. So if you can see, you have a very far background, you have the sun, or a moon rather, you have clouds, you have pine trees, you have the wolf, and then you have the perch that the wolf is standing on. It just has a nice effect. Rather than using a burning tool, because obviously the carver wanted to keep this in its natural wood, the carver did a really good job of using a V-tool and just using different patterns. So it might not show up well in this particular photo, but if you're able to zoom in on it, you'd see in the background, he uses one pattern with the V-tool. The pine branches have a different pattern. The wolf has a different pattern. The perch that he's standing on with the grass around it has a pattern again. It just makes a nice effect. Really nice carving. Thought it was, like I said, it is something a little bit different as a relief carving. If we had a kind of a takeaway for the carver to consider, maybe the snout could have been a little bit longer, but real nice carving.
Now we're moving on to the other category, and here's the first one for that.
This one we've chosen, and there's so many things you could say about it. I am first of all, I'm involved in I would say the fairy and the Harry stories. Any kind of fairy scenes or fairy stories and spells and that type of thing, as well as Harry Potter. This book appeals to me along this line. And with my own programs, as I took it from the web, I took the picture and I could enlarge it, get a lot closer to it. And one thing you'll see when you get closer to this picture, the leather straps look like leather. And the contrast with the buckle being smooth and gold is great because you can see that the two are hooking together, keeping the book shut. Now, the other part about this story is it's a fun story, and the book seems to come alive. It's almost got a warning to it. Don't open this. Be very careful. And if you've been involved in reading the stories, or perhaps with your grandkids watching some of the stories that are on television right now, you'll see that there are those kind of warnings, and you think twice about opening the book. That's the story. Great job. But looking at the point of getting the face to be on the corner of the book, plus carve the book down smaller, that was a good challenge, and you met it. You did a great job. He's quite a character.
So this one was called Saturday Night Cowboy, and you can see it's a nice character, really nice storyline to it. So he's got his mug of beer there, he's got his cigar, spittoon. There's a little foot bar at the bar, planking on the floor. He's clearly at a bar. He's got a black eye too to take home. So he's a Saturday Night Cowboy, and a few interesting things about this. First of all, a really good and interesting combination of exaggeration. Caricatures have to be exaggerated. So typically, you know, the ears, the nose, the head, the feet, the hands are all exaggerated. And this one's an interesting combination, is that everything's pretty much exaggerated except the hands, and it just makes it interesting. A lot of really good detail in the spittoon and all of the other pieces like the cigar and the mug. When I was looking at it at first, I thought, geez, you know, he looks a little bit too smooth for a cowboy, and he looks a little bit too clean for a cowboy. But then I realized, wait a minute, this is a Saturday night cowboy. He dresses up and just gets in a good fight on a Saturday night. Other than that, he goes back to his work as an accountant. So it's really good from that perspective. The boots are clean, everything looks really good. As good as it is, you know, maybe one of the things that this particular carver could think about is maybe putting a little bit more darker colors, tones of colors in crevices and that kind of thing. It wouldn't make him look like a tough cowboy, but it'd give you more a realistic impression around what our clothes look like. Now, the carver may have done this and it just doesn't show up well because of the brightness of the photo, but that's something to consider. Good carving.
Mark, just a comment that the black eye is probably mascara.
It could be. Here's another caricature that we really liked, and it's called Scout's Honor. And listen, this is just a nice, simple design of a caricature, and it's really well done. When you do caricatures, often you see the characters of older men, kind of tougher looking men, lots of wrinkles, big ears, big nose. And if you ever try to do a caricature of a woman or a small child, it's really quite difficult because you don't have all of those things to be able to work with. You want a pretty woman, you want a child that looks childlike. And so the carver here really did a good job of that. Like the face, you know, you could argue maybe you'd want to sink the eyes a little bit different in the caricature, but you wouldn't want a huge nose or huge ears. You want kind of a chubby little face, and really got captured well here. When you take a look at the little salute, the Scout's Honor salute, the little canteen, the scarf, the walking stick, it's just perfect. And it really brings you down to the country when you look at the base. You know, it's just a slice of a trunk of a tree, or a branch in this case, but it really brings the whole notion of the character out in the wilderness. The other thing I'll mention about this is that often with even simple caricatures, they look a little bit squarish, and the carver here did a great job of everything's round. You know, the chest, the body is round, the legs, the arms are round, the head's round, the hat's round. Really got away from that notion of squareness. Sometimes you can look at a caricature and you almost see the block of wood that's been cut out of. Real nice job of making it nice, rounded, and pleasant to look at. Might want to consider, just as a suggestion on other carvings, but put in a little bit broader palette of colors, you know, add different tones to the shirt where there might be a shadow. And again, that may be the case, and it's just the brightness of this photo. We can't see it, but something to consider. Nice carving.
We wanted to take a look at this one with the chip carving. Before we talk too much about this, this keepsake box, the lid, which you can't see right now, is actually a relief carving of 3 dogs' heads at the top up there. But very nice. I mean, the box looks great. The contrast between the dark wood and the lighter wood is excellent. Taking a look at the chip carving, you can see in the dog, you can see all of the free flowing lines. They all are nice and clean. You can definitely see that that's a dog. Trying to get the rounded lines are really challenging, and they were well executed. It's nice to see the border that's around the dog in the 4 corners. Those little triangles are also on the right-hand side where you can see the script. The script itself, well designed. All of the letters are well spaced out. From the angle we can see here, they look like they're clean and crisp. Of course, when you're dealing with chip carving, you're also looking for those clean, crisp lines. You're looking for at the bottom of each chip, each of the holes, that it's nice and clean at the bottom. We can't quite see that here, but it's really indicates well in terms of the photo. It looks like it's really good. We don't see little cracks in any of the lines. One of the comments might be the fact that there's a lot of clean space, white space. A lot of times with chip carving, there's a little bit more of design features around it, but they bordered it well in the corners. Again, we have the free flowing of the dog. We have the script on the other side, nicely balanced. A really nice box that somebody is really fortunate to have. Now we're going to move on to the combined category.
This is a personality plus. If you've ever been close to a pug, this biographer has captured a pug perfectly. They've got a way to look at you, but the one thing about a pug is it doesn't look at you long. He looks at you and then turns his head to watch something else. But the capturing of this moment and the work that he's done with the burning tool is amazing. And if you heard Keith Kirkham speak about the biography, one thing when you look close at this photograph and you look closer at, if you saw the real thing, you'll see layering taking place. And he's done this, or she's done this, because you'll see a lot of wrinkles, and the fat wrinkles around the pug, its neck, its collar, it's under his chin, the forehead. That's done emphasizing by putting the layering in first, the lighter shading lower, and then eventually building up to the black on top. So it's an amazing job that this person's done. The challenge is the wrinkles and the hair and the shading and the layering. I love this part of it. The attitude and the great story that goes with it is a personality, because anybody that has a pug loves a pug. And when the pug passes away, they'll get another pug. This pug is one that's captured the heart of its owner. And the photograph kind of shows that to start with, but the biographer really has done a great job. Thank you for that picture.
Here's another biography of a German village. What really impressed us right off the bat, as soon as you take a look at, is the detail. You can see the detail in the windows. You can see the detail in the little cafes at the bottom. Just enough detail to let you know what's happening in there. The perspective was really good on the main features. The part that we found was on the right-hand side, some of the lines, and I know Murray spent quite a bit of time talking about perspective. We found that some of them on the right-hand side weren't aiming towards the vanishing point quite the same way. But the whole overall picture, you can see yourself walking down the street, and you can even see the mountain in the background behind it. Gives you that idea that you can be walking down the street, turn the corner, and go for a nice spring hike up the side of the mountain. There's some good shading that's happening. You can see different shading in different places, which gives a nice contrast and makes each building unique in its design as well as in its shading and its coloring.
This is an amazing job of Intarsia. And just really special. The title of it is Mill River. And it's a good choice of wood and colors. It's delicate and it has details, yet it demonstrates the strength of that bird. So in my days of canoeing in our area, going out on the rivers, different places, you'll slide along a river and all of a sudden the blue heron will come out from the side and the big thing will fly ahead of you just a bit and then land softly at the edge. And you wonder how those skinny little legs can support that great big body. And this person has done a great job of that, making that contrast, standing on one leg and the other leg up. And it has weight, it has a body to it. It has something there that is something you just love to look at. So putting that against a black background sure makes it stand out so much better than having the kitchen sink or all your carving tools in the background. We've already talked about that, really is important. And again, a session on photography or presentation would be excellent. But Carver and Intarsiast, you did a great job. Thank you.
At this time, now we're going to move on to the competition winners. And as you've already seen, just through the examples that we've already shown you, there's some exceptional carvers and our carvings. So to pick out some, that took a lot of work to try to decide the winners. Or as was mentioned earlier, some people sent in a couple of pictures up to a maximum of 3 so that we could get different angles on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the carvings through each of the different sections. And as you go through each one, we will start with 3rd place, then 2nd, and then 1st place for each one. We'll also, the picture will come up, we'll talk about it, and then we'll announce who the carver was for that particular carving. So we begin with the in the round winners. And in 3rd place, this is where we need drum rolls. In 3rd place, we have the whales. This really was intriguing to us as we looked at it. You could demonstrate or see the playfulness of the 2 whales. It's amazing just the way that the one whale's fin is what's supporting the entire carving. The painting that was done, it's almost like it's leather, very much like an actual whale's leathery skin. The smoothness, the flow of the fins, or in the tail particularly, as you can see on the right-hand side. It was just a really intriguing picture that we were very pleased to see. And so we would like to give congratulations to Dennis Dressler for his 3rd place winning. Now we'll go to 2nd place.
Yeah, 2nd place goes to this really nice little carving of a shrike and a gecko. You can see standing on a country post with a little bit of barbed wire around it. Real pretty carving. There were 3 photos included with this one, so we got a chance to take a really good look at it from all angles. The bird is just done exceptionally well. The proportions look great from every angle, right down to you can see the little hooked beak at the end. A lot of stoning was done on this, fine stoning, and obviously a lot of fine wood burning on it. The painting was also done exceptionally well, and you can see that even from this picture, a lot of fine continuation of one color into the next, a real pretty little bird. The shrike is actually called the executioner because it is just vicious. It picks up its prey and it impales it and tears it apart on anything that it can find, and often hides that food again or eats it. And so the addition of the barbed wire there is really appropriate for this little bird. The base carving itself, that little fence post it's sitting on, it in itself is just exceptional. You know, the carving of it, the painting of it, so you get the dark pieces where it goes deep and into the green, the lighter dry brushing over the top where it looks weathered and rotten. If you could take a real close look at this, there's even kind of like fuzzy sections on that where the wood over time has gotten a little bit fuzzy. Just a real nice carving in our estimation. In terms of how do you improve a great carving like this, I really don't know. I don't know a lot about geckos, but if I was that gecko, I think I'd look a lot more frightened than maybe that one is. I don't know how you carve a frightened gecko though. But on this one takes a second place in the round, and our winner is Bob Robertson. So congratulations, Bob.
And now we go to first place in the round category. And first place is,
Wow. That's what I say when I saw this photograph. You get close enough, we can't really show it here today, but there's some even marks made on the skin of these creatures where they've had a fight or they've rubbed up against something. The sense of motion is very effective, playful, coloring is accurate, mounting is intriguing, and detail and shape accurate. The marking on the skin, as I mentioned, is something to look at very closely. And I just want to say congratulations to this individual. As Kevin pops up the name, you'll see that you've already read it. Dennis, great work. Thank you for sending this.
now we will move on to the relief carving winners. And in third place in the relief carving category,
Again, another just beautiful carving. So this one is called Woman on a Box. And as you can see, extremely artistic, very beautiful design. You know, the square bench there within a rectangle, the woman's form going across it in a diagonal. In this particular picture, you can't necessarily see that the left foot is extending beyond the background. Just a gorgeous piece of artwork. The female form is executed just beautifully. The bench in the female form, the grain is all exhibited, so you can see the grain moving up through the carving. Really pretty. One of the things that really struck us on this was the background, and you can kind of see it in this picture. The background has been patterned in a fashion that really makes the whole form and the bench really stand out. It's not only the color of the background, but the texture of the background. It almost looks like a tool was used, like a center, a punch, if you want, and it made a million spheres that captured all of the gold paint in there, and it's just a real pretty, artistic piece of art that really caught our eye. So that goes for a third place in this category, and congratulations to Christoph Dronko.
and in second place, we have the Scarborough Bluffs. With this relief carving, we found that the detail was excellent. What really drew our eye was that you can actually journey from down where the water is, following like a path up towards the right to the top. The difference is a perspective from the trees, and we know how big the trees would be at the top, but they really give the idea of the distance from the water up to the top. The detail in the cliffs and the bluffs themselves, if you've seen the Scarborough Bluffs, just look exactly like that, just coming straight out of the ground around it. It's almost like it's done in the round. It's a carving that just drew us right in. It was a massive. It's a big. It looks like a big piece of wood, but it was just the whole mass of the structure really demonstrated really well the Scarborough Bluffs. And we could also see that this would have been something that could very easily be in a city hall, with the lettering at the bottom down there. Would be something that could be on a display in that kind of an environment. And so we'd like to give congratulations to Anna Duda. So congratulations for second place. And now we'll go to first place. And our first place winner in the relief category, or first place carving, is?
I've had the privilege of seeing this particular carving up close. It is not much bigger than what appears on my screen, So the detail of the work is really, it's just something that stands out for me personally. What is it? Well, it's the stones that have been cut and placed into their place to hold that big wall up. Well, how big is the wall? Likely a castle that's either deserted now or maybe it was defeated in a battle. But there's a story to this old castle, and the artist and carver has caught this so clearly. The great thing about too is that the photograph taken has a light source that comes from the right-hand side. Another great presentation this way. But as you look at the little dimples in the rocks, it's excellent. And when you think of the size of this, it's not a large carving, but it's the detail that's been placed in there is amazing too. Now added to that, not only there's coloring on the picture, on the carving, and the contrast between the real rocks and the stones that have been cut is made great by the fact that the frame is a jet black. And so this is a very, very effective one, chosen because of the detail, because of the ability, the architectural parts of it put together. And when you think of the original builders of that castle, my goodness, the artist that happened in the first place has been captured by the artist that does that now in our era. Thank you for this carving. Congratulations. Great job. Well done.
Now moving on to the other category and the winners. In third place.
Yeah, the third place winner goes to this fun little caricature, and it's the French Grand Prix, as you can see. Real fun design, very unique when it comes to what we normally see in caricature carvings. Having a really well designed and well executed car with a couple of, a driver and a navigator, and the little starter at the side with his flag and his stopwatch. Really, we took a few views of this with a number of photos that we received, and are really good in terms of proportions and details and just general realism. So you can see a lot of panel lines, a lot of rivets, a lot of buckles, a lot of straps. There's even wheel nuts on the spoked wheels. Just a real nice little carving. A very thoughtful addition of the starter, because the starter has a stopwatch and he's holding a green flag that you don't necessarily see in this picture, indicating that the race is either just starting or restarting, and that the vehicle is momentarily stopped. And so it makes a lot of sense, because otherwise you'd have to think about, what does a spoked wheel look like when it's spinning? The scarves around their neck should be flying in the air. So a lot of thought went into this carving. And what you might not see from this shot is the coloring and shading throughout it is done really well. Again, a full palette of colors was used. Really nice carving. So congratulations to a third place setting on this one. Congratulations, Tony Enthoven.
Moving on to second place in the other category. For second place, we have the chip carved plate. We can see this being well balanced. There's a lot of motion. If you take a look at each of the different layers on the outside, you've got the ginkgo leaves, and as you move into the plate on the inside, you can almost see it like different circles starting to spin and starting to turn, which is an excellent thing to have within the carving. The cuts are very clean with this perspective. We were able to zoom in and see that the bottom of each of the cuts was very, very clean and precise. You had a balance of the small little triangles, larger triangles, curved lines. There was a really good balance between positive and negative space on this particular plate. I think anybody having this plate hanging up on the wall would be very pleased. And we would like to say congratulations to Peggy Walker for her second place winning. And now for first place.
What do you say? Gulliver's Travels? Or maybe the Trojan horse. How about a Trojan turtle? And the contrast between the implements that help the turtle to travel a little faster with the wheels and his shell, his protective gear, and yet the turtle's legs and head and everything are realistic or very close to it. With the coloring and burning or the painting on it is really great. And so the many detailed parts kind of stand out for me, and it takes the viewer to a story or a time. Now you can't see it real good in this particular picture, but we're able to zoom in on it. And the little creatures are not Lego people. They're wooden people, each one individually carved. You can actually see the knife strokes on it, almost like a flat plane carving. And so it is really a type of carving that is another wow factor to it. So congratulations to Tony again. Great job. Thank you so much.
And now we'll move on to the combined winners. In third place, we have
a really nice little piece of artwork here using pyrography. So really nice design. We felt, you know, the head, just taking the head and the shoulder and not trying to do a full moose or something like that really brought something, we thought, to this particular piece of artwork. And also not having a background that would kind of take your eye away from the main subject. Really good use of light and dark. So the light shoulders, the dark snout, the darkness underneath the antlers, really gave you a sense of the animal and where the light source was coming from. You can also see a lot of light and dark within the coats of the coat of the hair of the moose itself, which gave it some texture and gave it some contour. Really a nice job. You know, a simple design when you think about it, but really nicely executed. So, so third place in this category goes to Brian Bell. So congratulations, Brian.
for second place.
Very unique piece. Found wood. And as they find it, they looked at it carefully, or he looked at it, or she looked at it very carefully. He looked at it carefully to see the person inside of that wood. Again, part of a story, kind of like a wood spirit, but whimsical and unique. The face flows out of the driftwood, and the use of the eyes provides the contrast that we want, or you like to have, to make the character stand out. And the mouth provides the emotion. So again, thank you for that. And congratulations to Bill Hamilton.
And now for first place in the combined category. Here we have another pyrography. This one here, we found that the detail was exceptional. Having a little bit of that coloring at the top too, just added a nice little contrast. Very good control over the temperature and over the shading. It's very well executed. You can look at the differences in terms of the shading on the horse, the shading on the woman, the shading on the wagon at the back. But also, if you look at the shadow at the bottom, you can see just the way the little pebblings that they've put underneath. You can see that the sun is out, the sun is directly overhead. Very fine details. It actually looks like it could be a photograph right exactly the way it is right now. And so we would like to give congratulations to Tony. Thank you so much for everyone who has contributed to the show and for the competition. We have one more category that we need to talk about. That's the People's Choice. This is the first time that we've had this at an OWCA show. And the winner of the People's Choice
is one really fat chipmunk. I have these around my backyard, and no matter who puts the seeds out or the peanuts out, the chipmunk will try to put every single one in his mouth before he almost falls off the perch where he's sitting. A great piece. And the People's Choice goes to Diane. And I want to just say congratulations to you, but also something we've learned through this process of putting the idea of a People's Choice into the show is that really, which one do you choose? Well, the way it goes is you get the ones with the most votes, and Diane had lots of votes come in for her People's Choice. Congratulations, Diane. You did a great job of communicating with everybody. But the other thing that happens with People's Choice is a lot of people came to the show to look at all of the carvings. So thank you for that. And we do see great carvings today. We've seen great carvings. And in the future, we'll be expanding a little bit more, careful what we do, but also looking at what the possibilities are for the future. Thank you, each one. And thank you, Kevin and Mark, for your great work in this area.
Thanks very much. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I think before we break, we want to thank Murray. You know, he was really the spark plug behind this whole thing. When the three of us started talking about a virtual show, we talked about the competition, and Murray said, you know, maybe we should have a seminar or two. Well, the seminar or two, I think, turned into a 2-week endurance for Murray, and led a lot of really good discussions, and brought in a lot of people to help with the seminar. So, you know, if we could take a minute to give a round of applause, that'd be to Murray. So thank you, Murray.
Yeah. Very good, Murray.
So I appreciate that, folks. It has been a joy to work with this. Now, things have started to happen again. This show has not just been a matter of bringing carvings together or carvers together, but it's spawning new ideas. And we're looking at the COVID 2020 days where it's shut us down. We're not done. We're not quitting. And please take that message back to your carvers and your club or your friends that carve with you. Ontario Woodcarver Association is very much alive and looking forward to a future that's even brighter than the one that we've passed this last year and the years before. One thing that's coming out of it, and you'll hear often from other carvers, well, I took that course from a guy in Tennessee, or I took that course from a person over in Colorado. That's especially with Keith, with the biography. And Mark has mentioned a number of times as he introduced the True North character carvers that what would happen is the dream of the Ontario Woodcarver Association is not only to see the TNCC people starting to develop the way they are, but perhaps the biographers and perhaps the other relief carvers and those people would be able to join together and encourage each other even more. Well, Mark, that's happened. The appeals come already that we would see a biography group start, and all different levels to encourage each one so they could develop their biography a little bit more. And that would probably include a lot of artwork together with how to do the actual burning and develop your idea from there. And so that has started to take place. Now, the other thing that's come out of the conversations that we've had, I have above my head now, let's talk. That's really what's happened. We love talking to one another. I've mentioned this before because as when I became involved in the Ontario Woodcarver Association with the editing job, the editing task, I had to go to places where I could get pictures. Well, the best place, you can't wait for a show. There's a few of them around, quite a few, and they'll all come intensely almost month after month, then bang, it's over for a period of time. But what's not over is the carving club. And going to visit a carving club has been amazing. But I went back to a couple of them the second time to get some more pictures. And there was a few months in between. What had happened was two old fellows were sitting together carving, each with their own pace. And they were sanding it. They carved a little bit on it, take a chip off here and there. But the course of 2 months' time, not much had changed on that particular carving, but the conversation had been powerful between the two of them. And they come back for the coffee and cookies and that time together. And so the let's talk part was kind of developed with the idea that we can't get together So how do we get together? Not everybody likes something on the computer or the Zoom, but I'm really impressed this last 2 weeks with the number of folks that have not been computer geeks in their lifetime, and they've had a secretary or an IT person working for them in their job, but now they're on their own computers. Mind you, I've seen, and as people have gone by in the pictures, as I've been watching the little pictures at the top of my screen, I've seen the odd wife pop in to tell him what to do. And then when the sound hasn't been turned off, I heard, Ethel, come here and help me. Not so much. There's no Ethel in our group, I don't think, but illustration wise, it's just, there's some real comedy. And Mark, again, I see character carving come out of this very much so. Some of those pictures are just pictures in my head. All of a sudden I could carve them. But as we do that, we're looking at the future. And what are we saying? The suggestion has come from a couple of places. Why not do, for the period of time now that we may still be kind of locked down and isolated, even after we get our shots, why not do this on a monthly basis from time to time with different speakers coming in? When that suggestion was made, I had emails offering a possibility of showing their slideshow, their PowerPoint show on how they carved a particular thing. So there is an interest and there is a resource that's coming. And these are people that have not really shown the rest of Ontario what it's about, but they do things for their own club. And they wonder maybe if that PowerPoint presentation wouldn't be something that other people in Ontario would be able to view. Now, so as I say this, like when we're down towards where the Toronto area is and Brooklyn carvers and Belleville, we're kind of into our own little bubbles down here. But I want to tell you something, there's way more carvers in the north part of Ontario, the east part of Ontario, the west part of Ontario than there is in our own bubbles. One of the advantages of this kind of thing with the Zoom meeting is you can pop the bubbles and get out of it and you'll see far more. So we have a great group of carvers that have really are responding to Ontario Woodcarver Association in the Thunder Bay area. And I know on our Zoom call today, Gord Seeberger is here from Fort Francis, which is, he's only about 1 block away in his wheelchair. He can roll down and go across into the US for whatever he wants to get when things are open. Of course, he won't go there now because it's kind of dangerous. But we do have people in North Bay and people north of North Bay, up in Temiskaming area. And as we're hearing about it today, I received a phone call from a person living in Coburg, wanting to know if I would be able to sell her some wood or know where she could buy some wood. And I questioned her why. She said, well, my sister is carving and she needs some wood. I said, where did your sister live? Could we maybe help her in this region? She said, no, she lives quite far away. I said, where does she live? And she lives in Moosonee. And so wood possibly will be coming from the lower part of Ontario where there's some people dealing in wood. This lady will pick it up and ship it to her sister. So carvers are a lot further away than we thought they were at first. And we need to connect with them and encourage them. And amazing stuff that they're doing, we need to see that too. So I'm wrapping it up with that kind of conversation, with that kind of appeal to you. I'd just love for you to be involved more. So if we do have another virtual show, it comes onto the computer, try to encourage fellow carvers to enter something. Show what you have. Now, the contrast between our 2 times 2 times 4 block of wood that we showed on, we were working together with on Friday night last evening is great. Beside these marvelous pieces some people have carved, these are entrance carvers. These people have just started carving or perhaps have tried something brand new and they submitted the carvings. These will be in the magazine coming up. And so I just want to say thank you to all of them as well. There's great things going to happen. So just compliments to you, and you are the people that makes the Ontario Woodcarver Association what it is. And thank you for doing what you do. Any comments closing that you'd like to say?
I would just like to say I'm really keen on the idea of a meeting once a month because the students that I have at the cultural center are starved for communication. And they, I know that the one chap came on, and the first night of the caricatures, I think 3 of the carvers were on, Cindy, and I don't know if Amy was on or not, but they tell me that, without communication, without talking to other carvers, seeing things, they're not carving. They are losing interest. So I'm really keen on Ontario Woodcarvers, putting this forward to hold the people together.
Mhm.
That's what'll get us through it. And I think carving is a great medium for, helping one another. And thank you. Thank you very much for this. I think it was great.
Great words, Marlene. Thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else want to jump in these last little while, so a few minutes or so? We've booked this or booked it, but planned for from 3 o'clock on to 4:30. We're
Well,
about
I think
15
it was a
minutes away.
really great show.
Great.
It's even better than a live show because you talked about each carving, and you don't get that when you go to a show in person. You got to explore it yourself, right? But you guys are explaining the whole thing, which is really interesting.
Where are you from, Tom?
Milverton, between Listowel and Stratford. So far, anyway.
And this is one unique fellow for you fellows, folks to meet.
Yeah, I'm the one-handed carver guy.
He had a stroke and has put him in a chair, but that does not stop him.
Yeah, I still do some carving, one-handed.
Thanks,
Good
Tom.
for you.
Yeah, have a
Well,
meeting once a month. Because I
I
have a
think this has
stroke
been a really
meeting
cool
once a month
show.
as well.
And this fellow is, introduce yourself, please. Gord?
Oh, yeah. Gord Seeberger up here in the middle of nowhere in Fort Francis. I've been able to catch some of your shows you've been putting up and just watch them afterwards when they're recorded, which was really cool to be able to do that because I wasn't able to get to all of them. And it's good to see, even when there's only a few people that show up, it's given an example to the rest of us to get more involved and just know that the rest of us or the rest of people are out there, like you said, we're all over the damn place. And um, it's one of the only ways we actually can get together better now than if we had like shows, because like myself, there's no way I can travel all over Southern Ontario to go to shows like in the past. I'm just confined locally here, but even with this virtual, it's just given us a new world opening up for all of us.
Yes, Eric. You have to unmute yourself or push the space bar.
I think he was saying goodbye.
We're saying goodbye. Maybe that was this business of bifocals and no focus is pretty wicked to live with. It's called old age. You keep going like this to look better. Anyone else? Kevin, what about, you're on the screen right now. What about yourself? You've been involved in this. Is this really bogged you down and buried you underneath of loads of work?
Well, with getting all the pictures that people were sending in, that was quite the thing. But I think each one of the 3 of us had our loads that we were carrying on our shoulders. I spent quite a bit of time on the computer with everybody's pictures trying to prepare them. But then Mark spent a whole lot of time on the computer trying to get the website to work properly. So it's been a great job and a great experience. I look forward to actually seeing us. I like the idea of us having a monthly meeting. It'd be really easy to sit down and to do some planning, get some people to share their ideas. We could get people to give us some carving seminars. it's wonderful. We may as well use the technology for our advantage, even when things open back up again, to be able to continue having this, be able to see people from all across Ontario. That was a really nice thing to be able to do. Yeah.
No, you've been involved in setting up actual show at Magic and Wood in Pickering area. There's a pile of work involved in that happening too.
There's a lot of work in doing anybody who's set up a real live show knows there's a lot of work in that, especially if you have a competition and you've got the prizes and you're trying to book places and you have the financial commitment is huge. I mean, we put a lot of time in, but the finances of running this show has really been for the getting the Zoom account.
So what did Magic and Wood show cost to put on with especially with the rent I'm thinking of?
Oh, with the rent and everything else? Well, we always lost money. So every time we had a show, the Magic and Wood show, we lost money. So if we ended up losing less than $1,000, we thought that was a good show. It was something that we thought, and we think is really important to be able to keep it going. And that's why we do, in order to encourage it. But at the same time, one of the problems we found was it's on the east side of Toronto. And so we don't get a lot of people from the west side of Toronto coming all the way across to become part of the show. Just like when they have shows on the west side of Toronto, Toronto's this big wall in the middle. Mm-hmm. And you don't cross that wall. And that's one of the beauties of Zoom, is that we've been able to cross the wall. But I think something else that would be helpful would be for some of the people, maybe some of you that are watching right now, to want to get involved in these online shows. Whether you have something to contribute, you'd like to take a role on, you'd like to find guest speakers, that kind of a thing, that would be great too, because it takes the responsibility off of just 3 people. If you have 3 people and something happens to one of the 3 of us, we're down to 2. That makes it a challenge as well. We're also talking about doing, I hope you enjoyed the trip we had to Lee Valley, the OWCA on location. We'd like to do some more of those as well. We have a couple of other ones sort of planned that we can kind of get out and check out some different places, but you might have someone or some place in your area that you might like to be able to do something as well. It doesn't have to be a store. It could even be your own workshop or somebody's workshop, and going in and taking a look at the workshop and seeing some of their things that they do. Anything just to help the community.
And Kevin, along that line, when I attended the Thunder Bay's club meeting last week on one of the evenings, one of their members had someone come and take the pictures and put a PowerPoint presentation together, and he presented his workshop. I came out of that feeling like, I don't know if I'll ever do that. He had such a nice, clean workshop. Mike Southern was the person that has the workshop, and it's so well laid out, but it gave us ideas as to how to get cleaned up or how to straighten out and get it organized so you know where things are. Yeah, it's also tough. Like what I've done is I have my workshops actually in a shed in the backyard. I've got it all heated, and it's just a small thing, 11 by 11 in the backyard, which is great. But it was really hard trying to find examples of how to set up a carving workshop. Mm-hmm. It was really hard because most times you take a look and they say small shop, and it's like a big garage or a full basement. Well, that's not small. I'm thinking of small, right? 11 by 11 isn't very big. And some of you've got some even smaller ones that you use as well. So it'd be nice to see somebody's messy workroom that they actually make great carvings from. We could have a competition. Who's got the messiest workroom? Oh, there's some hands going up now already. So that's awesome. Wood chips all over the house. You get them stuck on your feet, and then you get in trouble when you walk through the house and you have to vacuum. And yeah. I had a fellow carver in Regina, Saskatchewan, in the group there that he was quite large, sat in a huge, easy, like a big easy chair. And he was a fantastic carver. He took a bed sheet, cut a hole in the middle, and 2 holes on a little bit lower down for his arms to go through, because the head went through the bed sheet. And it was this gigantic apron that covered his chair and all around, and he'd carve on his lap and they caught most of the chips, but what went on the side, he paid his daughter to clean the house up. He didn't really do a lot of cleaning, but he was an amazing character. He's one of these guys, when he came into a club or he came to the show, everybody knew him. It was just a, but this is the part about carving. We are all different. Anyone else like to contribute something before we close up our show today?
I just like to ask Mark, if I get on your email list and if I was going to order a magazine, do you take e-transfers?
You're not a member of the OWCA right now, Robert?
In Ottawa, the OWCA Carving Club.
Okay. Yeah, so what we've done is with the Ontario Woodcarvers Association, we have a $40 membership and you get a bunch of different things, but one of them is the magazine. And that's probably the thing that people see the most out of the Ontario Woodcarvers Association. At one time, we had a lesser cost just for the magazines, but although Murray and Kevin and I haven't talked about this recently, we're finding that printing and distribution, mailing of the magazine is getting so high that anything less than $40, we're pretty much losing money. So, you know, I see Murray nodding. I'm not saying anything out of school here, but I would suggest to you, Robert, that to consider becoming a member of the OWCA, because then you not only get the quarterly magazine, you get a password to the website for members only page. We're trying to put some more archived material on the website. You also get some insurance coverage as well. So when you go to a show, you get some personal insurance coverage for third-party liability, which is of value to us once we get back out into the carving world. So, you know, consider that. Become a member of the OWCA, then you'll get the quarterly magazines as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And I think the answer to help Robert is that when you go onto the website, it's through a special process that Mark has set up. It doesn't use e-transfer, but it has another method that just simply takes the information that you put in with your credit card, etc., and puts that through immediately to our bank account.
Okay,
It's like an e-transfer, only a bit more secure.
thank you.
I just had one other thought, and it kind of came up a couple of times in my mind when people were talking about getting additional ideas. One of the things I've struggled with is using the computer system to actually create a slide program of my own stuff that I've got kind of in a photo album, if you will, electronic photo album, and putting it together. I mean, I can do it for a slideshow or for presentation, if you like, for my own use, incorporating that into maybe a monthly meeting. And I'm thinking in terms strictly of ideas. So many carvers with so many different ideas. And if you could, just like you've done here with a lot of the things you did in your presentation today, simply go through what everybody is carving themselves. Just a quick flash. Okay, I'm working on this, I'm working on that. I picked up on Mark's now twice on this whole issue about using the clay. So I ordered some plasticine. And, you know, when you talk about doing that sort of thing, it takes you no time to create something like that from which you
Hold it still for us.
drawing.
Pull it back by the left side of your head.
Okay, the
In the
light here is
sunshine.
bad because of the
There it is.
sun.
That's it. Yep.
So, you know, that thing, that little clay thing that I did took me, I would say maybe an hour, hour and a half. And then from that, you know, I haven't had a lot of time here because of my wife's misfortune with an accident, but this took a lot more time. But this is a three-dimensional model, made my life a lot easier in just carving this thing. That idea I thought was worth $1 million. But you know, these kinds of things that people do that are unique, perhaps to their own environment, their ideas that they've come up with. Other people use this clay as well. I think these things are brilliant. I do different types of carving than most people. and maybe ideas could be picked up. I'm particularly interested in caricature carving. Even though I can't do the small stuff very well, I can incorporate that in some of my big stuff. The same ideas. What am I looking for? What do the people? I learned a lot this afternoon from what you folks identify as what the judges are looking for. What should we be emphasizing? I mean, in some of that type of thing, and if we show just a very quick run through of what we're doing, we can capture a lot of ideas back from the expertise that's sitting in the club and saying, okay, Stan, if you did this different on that particular carving, you might be able to score some points over here. Not that I plan to show a lot anymore, but because my stuff is too big to card in. Some of the stuff I'm working on right now, some of the logs I've got are 1,800 pounds each. And so I just can't get them in to the carving shows. So, but I think just having this show and tell thing, people pick up on that. Okay, what are you doing? If you tried this, different results. And that's where the learning, I think, that's what I'm looking for in terms of learning from everybody.
And we've thought about the possibilities of that monthly show of having a show and tell of everybody that joins the meeting. And the way that would be done is simply sending a photograph in the early part of a week that we're going to have it. So say by Monday, you'd send the photograph to myself or whoever's going to do this. And then by Thursday, when we have the meeting, your photograph will appear up clear on the screen and everybody can see it. And each person then can explain what they did. And maybe somebody would make a critique of it at the end of it. So those are just some of the ideas of a monthly meeting. It isn't just getting together to gab. It's going to be a positive kind of experience for everybody. But hey, Kevin, are you listening up there? On the spot rover reporter might need to go watch a chainsaw carver put some chips flying.
There's a good idea.
I think it would be good to watch this man handle an 1,800-pound log and put it back into the air.
Yeah, I can't get them into my shop. My shop is very large, but unfortunately, my front end loader won't go into it. So I have to do a lot of that kind of work outside, but I do some stuff that is kind of 1 or 2 or 3 feet tall. I've got a couple of bears that are 5 feet tall, 1 7 foot, that sort of thing. But I do a lot of stuff that's smaller, but it's not the real small stuff that the caricatures that Mark does or you do. I'm certainly not, I'm afraid to carve what you carve, Murray, in your small stuff because my chainsaw might make a mess of it. Even though I've got some small chainsaws.
These are great ideas. Anyone else, finally? Step up.
I like the idea of going into someone's workshop and them telling us what they do, because I had a project over COVID. I've remodeled the workshop in our house that was very overcrowded and very, very messy in my estimation. So I've just cleared it out and started all over again. Now people don't want to come into my workshop. It's too clean. But
I could help you mess that up again.
I would welcome ideas from other people as to, how to, I have my own ideas of the things that I use and how to organize them. But because I do 2 things, I do the wood carving and painting. So it's 2 things in, 1 room, a studio. But I'm trying to get it, it's long and narrow, and I'm trying to get it so that students, other people can come in and carve, because a lot of the people are not allowed to carve at home because it's too messy. Mm-hmm. Well, I allow anything. I'm used to lots of dust and sawdust and all that sort of thing. It's a good thing. It smells nice. So anyhow, I'm willing. I don't know how to photograph, do a slideshow. I can run off at the mouth easily.
Well, what I'd like to do in closing then is to take just one final suggestion, a thought that Marlene just shared. Could each one of you that have been on this meeting today, or some of you that are going to be watching the video later, simply write down your ideas as to what you think you would like to see presented by the Ontario Woodcarver Association. So give us a list of ideas, painting, taking photographs, these kind of things have been mentioned today. And then following that, maybe a suggestion about somebody in your club who does an excellent job that you would like to see featured sometime. Those would be great help to us.
For sure.
So coming to the end of this today, I want to say thank you. And it's been a great 2 weeks. All of us have benefited by it. Have a great next week, and goodbye to all of you.